Hello, my friends. This is your friend Sanjay Madhav. So, about I've talked a little bit in a few other videos about my tinnitus, and if you don't know what that is, you can look it up. It's constant ringing that you have in the ears. You've probably heard about this, but it's like one of those things where, unless you experience it, especially if you have it chronically, as I do, meaning 24/7. You don't really get, what it is. It's similar to explaining to someone that you have panic attacks. It's hard for people to relate if they haven't actually been through it. They tend to oversimplify this situation and the solution as well, and just go, well, it's all in the mind, and they give you something very simplistic that certainly doesn't empathize with your situation. Another good example, I think, is when people, get married or have children, and you're trying to explain the experiences and some of the things you go through in that situation, and you're talking to someone who's maybe never been married or doesn't have children. It's just some things, it's like if a woman delivers a baby, goes into labor, trying to explain to a man, what that process is probably difficult to relate. I mean, we can all try to understand and try to empathize, but no one will really fully grasp it unless they have personal first-hand experience with it. So anyways, I have this thing, tinnitus, right? A lot of people have it. It definitely, and I've had it for 6 years now. It's been a game changer for me, for sure, life changer. And it's still something I suffer with to this day, daily. I hate to use the term suffer, because I have habituated, but to a degree anyways. But see, I've got a cold right now, so when you get all that congestion in the sinus cavities, it actually exacerbates the symptoms of tinnitus, and then it starts becoming more bothersome again. But anyways, that leads me into a different topic that, like I said, it's been a huge journey for me for about 6 years now, and it's broader than the tinnitus experience. But that was the impetus to drive a lot of change in me, because I didn't want to. Well, I acknowledged a lot of qualities that were probably not going to be helpful coping with that, and decided I wanted to have a happier, more productive, and peaceful life, and first and foremost, and made a huge commitment to go in that direction. And my path is different from everyone else's path. But as I've mentioned in some other videos, I got into Buddhism, I got into reading a lot of positive things online, looking at different authors, talking to people, changing a lot over time, years, fundamentally changing a lot of my core system, my core belief system and thought processes, and views on how subjective opinions and beliefs and everyone's life experiences, and changing, at least not if becoming a more positive person, becoming a kind of more neutral person, but less negative, less person who complains, someone who's more grateful, has more gratitude, and so on and so forth. So, and the list goes on and on. But the net result is, I'm a better person, right? And a lot of people can say that, well, having gone through a process that's difficult, that's tragic, that causes suffering, you come out of it, the arduous journey at the end of it, becoming a better person. This is one example of that, and I'm sure in life there will be others ahead of me. But so that's a little bit about where my journey begins. But one thing it led me to, which I just want to really encourage people to consider a little more seriously as far as like daily habits and routines, is to do more reading, to think differently, be more open-minded, try and be a little bit more neutral about, more neutral posture on opinions and beliefs and judgments and such, at least if not more positive, and less negative. And that's affected a lot me personally, and how happier and how much more peace I have on a daily basis. But it's affected my interpersonal relationships a lot too, and so it's really just kind of a win-win-win all the way around in terms of the outcome. But I want to share some resources with you because I got ideas and I can share information and talk about things. I can talk about Buddhism. I can talk about meditation. I can talk about yoga. I can talk about positive thinking or changing your thought patterns or neuro-linguistic programming and on, things that I've studied, like I said, mostly over the last 6 years. But I'm not inventing any of this. This is information that's out there, readily available if you choose to find it. It's information that's abundant. It's information that comes from credible people, and it's information articulated, much in a much more palatable way and more concisely than how I could communicate it. And so a lot of what I've gotten from people like Tony Robbins. Watched a lot of his stuff online, read the books. Eckhart Tolle, Deepak Chopra, Sadhguru, even Oprah Winfrey, and there's a few other names that are kind of in that category of people. Now, again, I don't mistake this with, just the power of positive thinking, like people who are motivational speakers to give you the power of positive thinking. Like I said, I'm personally not all about positive. But I'm not either any longer about negative. Kind of more in the middle where it's more neutral, and I like to think of it as more realistic thinking. So it's not just positive, everything's positive and great, nothing bad ever happens. No, clearly, we could all dispute that, right? But being more realistic in the thinking, at least stop exaggerating certain things that happen and dramatizing and catastrophizing and all those other great sort of psychological labels for behaviors that we have. Because as many people have said, and not only those pundits, but I listen to, I've read a lot from psychologists and so on and so forth. People have done a lot of research on things with like anxiety and depression and things that I have personal first-hand experience with. So I'm looking for advice, guidance, tools. So first of all, become very open-minded to that. I've read, and I mentioned some of the names. I'd like you to look at some of that information if you think it's helpful. There are good resources out there. But the key thing is really the mind is flexible. It's changeable. It's malleable. It's one thing I've learned from studying neuroscience and neuro-linguistic programming is the concept of neuroplasticity, that the mind can be changed. It's how you learn and adapt to different situations. It's just like if someone loses their legs in an accident and starts off, going, I have to live in a wheelchair. Well, I can't do that. I can't live that way. That's it. Life is over. And may feel that way for a year. Go through a kind of grieving process, the loss of certain things, and then eventually going through the process of accepting it. That's what it is. It's not changeable. Okay, how do we move forward from there and actually start being productive again and happy again, enjoying things again? And you can do it. You can do it. People and animals, but we're people, so let's talk about people, I've come to learn, are very, very able to live with tremendous suffering and disorders and challenges and live with it and live happily, actually. But it's kind of a choice you have to make, really. It's it's like when people say, if you're not, whatever's going on today, I could be sitting here with a migraine and it's raining outside, and you just go, oh, what a miserable day. In fact, I'm about to get to the story about that this happened to me today. But I don't do that anymore. I don't complain. I don't look at the negative. I look at the positive in everything, and I focus on that. And you can not control a lot of things in life, but you can control your thoughts and perceptions towards it. I can't. If you go back to that example of the person who lost his legs, he's now in the wheelchair. That person absolutely can go on to live a happy and productive life and do pretty much anything a fully able-bodied person can do. And if you start meeting people like that or finding them online, you'll realize that's absolutely true. And therefore, so can you. But you have to change this first. And that's a process. Your thinking, your perceptions. right? Life is a subjective human experience. So a lot of what is going on in your life is really created by you up here, and it's largely imagined. But that's almost going on to a different topic, right? So I would urge people to look at things more neutrally, if not positively. I'm not one of those people that complains anymore. I used to be a pretty incessant complainer. I don't complain. I don't compare myself to other people. I just accept everything. I go with the flow. I try to do it as cheerfully as I can. But now that I've kind of gone through that process, I can look back at my former self or even others around me in society and see, oh, yeah, I see how those people who haven't quite gone through that can be now, getting upset over the traffic. If there's things beyond your control. There's going to be a lot of things in life beyond your control. There's no point in dwelling on it and letting it make you unhappy. Especially if you think of it like today. Someone was went for lunch with my mother and one of her best friends, and friend had a doctor's appointment, so I drove her there. She's a little older, was helping her out, and then afterwards she was nice enough to buy lunch. And we had a pretty good week weather-wise, but today it was raining, like all day. Didn't bother me none, but the other lady, she's about 65, so she goes, "Oh, what a miserable day." Like she was just feeling now depressed and moody about it based on the weather. And I thought something to myself, but she's a family friend, so I kept it to myself. And my mother sitting next to me goes, "Oh, it would have been such a great day today if only the weather had cooperated and hadn't been rainy." And that's when I went, time out, folks, time out. I wanted to bring something to their awareness, whether they realize it or not, or it made any difference in their thinking or not. You're feeling miserable now and unhappy, and you are letting something you can't control, like the weather, determine your mood. And you're casting a whole judgment on your day and how crappy a day it is based on the fact that the weather is not cooperating with you. So in other words, what you're doing is you're letting your happiness be determined by something external that you cannot control. And we can think of many examples of that. The weather's bad, or the traffic is bad, or it's too hot, or something, who knows what it is. Or you have a migraine or something. Okay, that's an internal thing. But it definitely doesn't make any sense when you really think about it to go, I'm unhappy because the weather's bad, the traffic is bad. So your happiness is... I'll tell you this, I'll just be blunt about it. If you make your happiness contingent upon an external factor that's outside of your control, you're never going to be happy. You're doomed to be unhappy for the rest of your life. Simple as that. So you have to take control of those things, right? Of those moods and emotions. And how do you do that? By taking control of some of the thoughts. And it's not that you're taking a problem and you're getting rid of it. I can't flip a switch and go, oh, it's sunny, now it's not raining. But I can change the way I think about, oh, it's a crappy day, and I'm sad now because it's raining outside. Right? We really should get to a point where we stop fucking complaining so much about everything and just kind of more go with the flow. If not feel good about it, be a little bit more neutral and ambivalent. What is the right word here? Ambiguous? Towards those things where you don't have control over it. Now, there are things like, let's talk about the internal. Now, you could say, oh, I have a migraine, so I'm terrible, in a terrible mood, and I'm frustrated and unhappy, and today's a crappy day. Yeah, people do it. And again, you got to be careful. It's an easy thing to get into, but you're programming your brain to follow this loop and accept that. Now, why do I mention this? Because it happens a lot with tinnitus, too, actually, where people will get up in the morning. I stopped doing this years ago because I just saw how absolutely unproductive it was when I'm trying to be a happier, calmer, more content individual and have a productive life. To get up in the morning and hear the tinnitus, it's loud, it's ringing, and you go, oh, it's so loud today, the ringing in my ear, the tinnitus. This is going to be a terrible day. If you have tinnitus, be very careful of that. You're setting yourself up for a miserable day by talking to yourself that way and speaking negatively about the situation, when in reality, actually, you don't know 2 hours later, or half a day later, or 30 minutes later, that you may feel differently in the day. That tinnitus may have a flare-up and change in 15 minutes, or 2 hours, or 6 hours. It's happened to me many days. Bad in the morning, but mild in the afternoon and evening, and I'm very calm when I'm watching TV in the evening, or able to focus and productively do some work or read something, which is difficult when you have tinnitus because being in silence can be a challenge. So, you gotta catch yourself. First of all, you have to catch yourself thinking negatively. It's kind of step one. Catch yourself thinking negatively. You'll see there's a pattern. You might have done this a lot, not even realized it before. I lived like that for many years. You catch yourself thinking that, and then you go, stop, time out. Okay, let me replace that thought with something else that's more optimistic and positive. And the more you do that, it sounds simplistic, but the more you do that, the more you actually can train your brain to think differently. And then suddenly you find yourself hearing the ring and it's loud, but not immediately thinking in some negative, catastrophic thought. Okay, so it goes back to what I started off with about neuroscience and neuroplasticity in the brain. You can change the way you think, change habits and routines and thought patterns. And if you can change the way you think, you can become a different person in a way, a person who thinks differently. And as a result of becoming a person who thinks differently, you can become a happier person and be more content, have more gratitude, very important for being happy, gratitude, being more grateful for what you do have. I see a lot of people complaining incessantly about what they don't have. And when you look at them, I want to slap them these days because I really want to go, explain to you what you do have that's going great for you in your life. It's a much larger list than what you just complained about. That the one thing that's not going well. So I agree with, because I've seen it in practice and I've done it myself with a lot of these guys, Tony Robbins, some of the others, and the psychologists that will just flat out tell you the brain is not designed to make people happy. It's not designed to make people happy. It's designed to keep you alive. So when you worry, when you have fight or fight types of reactions, they make you anxious, they give you anxiety, they can lead to depression and mood disorders and all kinds of things, but they don't make you happy, but they do keep you alive, right? So the takeaway from there is that happiness is it's controllable, it's up to you, but it takes work. It takes work, especially if you're a person like I used to be and just very negative kind of thinker in the first place in general, or if you're someone that has depression, moderate or severe, or someone that has anxiety issues, you have to then even work harder, actually working every day, making an effort to be at peace, to still your mind, to be happy and content and be grateful and have gratitude. You actually have to work at these things. That's why I do meditation every day, twice a day. Every day I read something or watch a YouTube video on something uplifting, positive, motivational. Even if it's just 10 or 15 minutes before I go to sleep, I make sure that I get that in as a routine every single day. Cumulatively, over time, that has a huge impact on changing your thought patterns. And so that the routine of that is really, really important. But just remember, it is really retraining the mind. Okay? But training of anything is not an overnight fix. Right? Training involves making a commitment, an effort every day to improve upon that, and maybe it having to go months or years before you see significant improvement. But with your own mind and your own thought patterns, you can do it. Catch yourself, correct it, catch yourself in a negative thought, correct it, replace it with a positive thought. If it goes back to the negative, just keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it, and keep doing it. And with the tinnitus, it's the same thing. You get on a negative loop, it rings. Oh, this is so, and this will hamper your ability to habituate too. By the way, if you sit there and dwell on it and ruminate and make it as negative as can be as your perception, and see yourself as suffering catastrophically, and saying to yourself, I can't live like this, and so now, us with chronic tinnitus, we've all done that. I'm just saying, in the initial stages, it's very common. But there's a reason why some people will habituate in 3 months, some in 6 months, some in 12 months, some in 12 years. You've got to go through acceptance. Okay? It's not going away. It's a part of you. You have to live with it. Having coping skills. Reframe your perspective on it as being so negative and catastrophic, and having it be a disability. Okay? You don't have to like it, but it's there and you got to live with it. So make the most of it. So why not try and think as positively about it as you can, when you can, and try and be as productive as you can in spite of it. This is a training too, to get to through these processes and be able to get unstuck and move past it, so to speak. But you have to keep doing that training every day. When I had the difficult times, really the first 3 years. First 2 years are almost unbearable, but first 3 years of the tinnitus, and I wanted to feel better, and I wanted to think more positively. I actually would do little, what do you call them? Actually get sticky notes, little post-it notes, and I would put little positive messages on there, and they don't always have to be these words of wisdom, like positive, uplifting, whatever, but just things like, they're a little more neutral but not negative. They'll uplift you. They have some meaning, something, Mine was a mixture. My post-its, they work really well. They're affirmations, right? A mixture of sort of little messages that were kind of positive and resonated with me, and then even some of the Buddhist sayings that I understood and they resonated with me, and so on and so forth. You make your own list. And I would go and put the post-it notes. I wanted to make sure everywhere I went inside my house, throughout the day, I would see them in a room somewhere. So first thing you do is what? You get up, you go into the bathroom. So I started with them. I wrote maybe 8 of these. I started in the the bathroom in my master bedroom. The mirror, I put up 2 post-it notes. Some got good affirmations. So when I'm sitting on the toilet, right across is the mirror, and I'm reading those every morning. In addition to that, and that's just my thing. Doesn't have to be something you do, but you can do what resonates with you. I had a photo of Buddha, and I had that also up there. So every morning I get up, might be feeling crappy, but I go. First thing you do, sit in the toilet. I look up there. Oh, got the 2 affirmations. I got Buddha. Okay, I'm already starting to rethink something and program a little different thought process in my mind. Then we're going to get up, we're going to go in the shower. What am I going to do next? I'm going to get changed. I'm going to walk into my closet, my wardrobe closet. So I had another post-it on the door going into the wardrobe. It had another good message. I would come out. Okay, next thing I'm going to go to the kitchen and prepare something there, drink some juice or whatever. So I had a pretty large kitchen, so I had about 3 post-its on different places, including the refrigerator, right? I want to include that, 1 or 2 on the refrigerator. So I wasn't going to miss at least every day half of these messages I was going to get. And they would keep starting planting this seed. And then next thing you do, you're getting ready to leave, so go to the garage door. I'd have a couple of messages posted, 1 or 2 post-its there with something else. And then I get in the car, and I even had one on in my car. So I don't know exactly what the count ends up being, but from the time, let's say the 45 minutes from the time I get up to the time that I'm now in the car, I've already passively really acknowledged 6 or 8 of these affirmations, and it sounds simple, but it has worked well for me. That's one of the things that I've done, one of the tools I've used to kind of move forward and think clearly and think more positively and be unstuck. And even in the morning as I go about my day. But at least half of them I would get that message and then get in the car and go forward. Then I would, wherever possible, I would include a couple in my office too, to remind me of these things at work. And then, of course, when I come back from work at the end of the day, I'm again in my house and I get these messages again, sort of passively. So this is one of many techniques that I've used, and one that you may want to try. Again, it's quite simple. It doesn't take a lot of time. It sounds like it's not going to do a lot. Sometimes, small things do work out to, over time, drive big changes. So every day you're getting a little bit, and then in addition to that, time is going by and you're getting more accustomed to and used to the tinnitus or whatever it is that you're afflicted with, and habituation starts to kick in and improve over time. A little more every week, a little more every month. I didn't really, with my tinnitus, I wouldn't say I started to habituate until about 3 years. Definitely the first 6 months I was in denial. And that's why after 6 months I basically had a nervous breakdown, and I was like, because that's when it kicked in for me that, oh, this is not going away. Has it already been 6 months living with this? Oh my God, it's not going away. I'm going to have to live like this the rest of my life. I can't do that. I can't live like this. Oh, what a miserable life it's going to be. Here you go, catastrophizing, predicting the future and all kinds of things. So for me, in my case, 6 months, there's definitely no habituation that's going to take place there. It's a process you have to go through, right? Just like it's a grieving process when you lose someone. You will get over it. You will. But not in a week. Could be a month, 6 months, a year, even more. Because there's a grieving process to go through. Acceptance is a very important stage in that. That's where I think you start making the most productive movements towards moving forward. And that's the case for many things. Grieving, tinnitus habituation, so on and so forth. But, yeah, like I said, in my case, 6 months, flew by like this, couldn't believe it was 6 months. At that point, it's pretty obvious you got something that's not going away anytime soon, if ever. So that acceptance had to sink in. A difficult pill to swallow. But the sooner you can do it, the sooner you can move forward and start habituating. Because it's all part of the process you have to go through. I would say I probably started habituating, well, about 2.5 years, because I had hyperacusis too, so I had extreme sensitivity to sound. So I had to kind of address that first, and slowly slowly readjust my hearing to accept sounds. I couldn't even go to a coffee shop because the Starbucks, steam machine would be like overpowering. But anyways, if you haven't had this condition of hyperacusis, you can't really relate to this, I'm sure. But I had extreme hyperacusis. I was about a year like a hermit. Go to work and then come home and just be in silence because it's difficult to even just watch TV, difficult to even just listen to the radio in the car. It was that problematic to my auditory system at that stage. So I spent a couple of years dealing with hyperacusis, got to the point where I could get rid of earplugs, at least not on a daily, not having to use them on a daily basis. And then moving forward with sort of hearing the noises and being accepted. But as you've already heard or read, you're training your brain to disconnect. And you can do it, and it is training. You're training or retraining your brain. Training your brain to disconnect the sound from the emotion, right? So there's sound, and then there's, oh my God, this is a terrible sound, I'm suffering, can't live like this, I'm depressed and I'm miserable. And then there's like a loop. And then you get depressed and you get anxious, and then what does it do? The limbic system comes back, and it exacerbates the symptoms. It's a sick fucking thing. But it is a loop, and that's how it works. So acknowledge that. And but you're training yourself to disconnect the symptom from the emotion. So when you do habituate, you get to the point where you go, sound, okay, I hear it, I acknowledge it. I'm going to let it pass. I'm not going to dwell on it. I'm not going to start thinking that I'm suffering and it's terrible and I can't live like this. It's there, fine, and concentrate. So your focus starts improving too. So you go through that process and you can do it. You can disconnect the experience from the emotion, but it does take time and it takes work at training the brain, your thinking patterns and processes to operate differently. Okay, I'm Jay Madhav. Hope that helps. Thank you for listening.